You can't take a shower in silence. You can't drive to work listening only to the sound of the engine. You can't wash the dishes, lie in bed, or even wait in line without turning something on to make noise for you. A video, a podcast, a song, any voice, anything, as long as you're not alone with yourself. And you've done this for so long that it doesn't even feel strange anymore. You call it a habit. You call it lack of focus. You call it the need for stimulation. You say your mind never stops, that you need something in the background, that this is just how you function, that it's not a big deal. But it is, because you've become unable to sit in silence for 5 minutes without feeling a kind of discomfort you can't even explain. Because the moment the world goes quiet, something inside you starts to move. And the second that happens, you reach for a screen before that feeling has time to take shape. Because the problem isn't that you're distracted. The problem is that you've been using noise for too long to avoid hearing what's actually going on inside you. And the more you fill your life with other people's voices, the further you drift from your own. Modern culture has given you the perfect excuse. It told you this is normal, that we're all overwhelmed, that attention is broken, that it's the phone, the algorithm, the pace of life. And yes, all of that plays a role, but it doesn't explain the core of it. The core is more uncomfortable, less flattering, harder to admit. You didn't turn your life into a constant stream of stimulation because you're productive or because your mind is sharp and needs to stay busy. You did it because silence is starting to scare you. Because when there's no noise, there's no escape. And when there's no escape, you show up. Your doubts, your fatigue, your emptiness, the questions you've been pushing away for months, maybe years, the life you tolerate, the person you're becoming, the gap between what you show and what you feel when no one is watching. That's what you're trying to cover every time you fill a quiet moment with sound. You're not consuming content, you're sedating yourself. And today, we're going to strip that habit of its disguise. Because maybe your problem isn't lack of focus. Maybe your problem is that you've been running away from yourself for too long.
Let's rebuild your routine, carefully. Not to judge you from a distance, but to show you, without excuses, how deeply this has already become your normal way of living. Your alarm goes off in the morning, and before your eyes have even adjusted to the light, your hand is already reaching for the phone. Not because something urgent happened, not because the world truly needs you at that hour. You do it for a much simpler reason, and a much sadder one. You need something to enter your mind before you have the chance to hear yourself. You turn off the alarm, and in the same movement, you open a social media app, a message thread, a video, anything. You are not looking for information. You are looking for invasion. You want the noise of the world to enter first so your own voice does not get the room. Then you get up, you go to the bathroom, and the phone goes with you. You place it on the sink. You play a YouTube video, a voice note, an interview, a song. It barely even matters what you're listening to. The only thing that matters is that something is playing, something to keep you company, something to distract you, something to save you from feeling the weight of being alone even for 3 minutes. Then you leave the house, you get in the car, and silence lasts exactly as long as it takes for your hand to turn on the radio or open Spotify, not 1 second longer. As if driving in silence were unbearable, as if the sound of the engine or the friction of your own thoughts were already too much for you. Then you arrive at work, you sit down, you open your email, you open your browser, you open several tabs at once, and almost without noticing, you put your headphones on again. The whole day moves like this: tasks, Interruptions, messages, screens, noise, small constant stimuli, tiny doses of distraction spread across hours. And when the day ends, nothing really ends. You go back home, you turn on the television, and here comes one of the most revealing details of all. You are not even really watching it. You leave it on while you scroll on your phone. You use one screen to distract yourself from the other. You use a voice in the background so you never have to be fully alone, not even for a moment. And that is how the hours pass, until night comes. You turn off the light, you lie down, and instead of resting, you sedate yourself again. You drag your finger across irrelevant content, one piece after another, with no real hunger, no real interest, no real presence, only the need to keep the stream going, only the need to avoid that uncomfortable moment when there is nothing left to do. And when you finally close your eyes, you did not fall asleep in peace. You collapsed. You do not sleep because you are at rest. You sleep because you are depleted, because you are overstimulated, because your system shuts down. That is not a full life. That is floating inside a permanent haze. That is moving through your days without ever truly inhabiting them. That is turning noise into an emotional prosthetic. And even then, you still call it a habit. You still call it entertainment. You still call it your way of unwinding. But do not lie to yourself. You are not resting. You are not informing yourself. You are not keeping yourself company. You are sedating yourself. You are filling every corner of your routine with stimulation so you do not have to face the one encounter that could actually change your life, the encounter with yourself. And to keep this whole structure from collapsing, your mind has built a brilliant excuse, an elegant excuse, a well-dressed lie. The lie that all this noise makes you more productive. And that is the mask we are going to break next.
Human beings have an extraordinary talent for disguising their weaknesses. When they do not want to admit a wound, they wrap it in beautiful language. They decorate it. They intellectualize it. They turn it into a virtue. And that is exactly what you have done with your dependence on noise. You do not call it escape. You call it optimization. You say you do not waste time, that you listen to podcasts while you drive, that you play audiobooks while you work out, that you answer messages while you work, that you make use of every minute, that your mind needs constant stimulation, that you are fast, sharp, multitasking. But let's be serious. You are not multitasking. No one is. What you are doing is not performing better. It is fragmenting yourself more efficiently. You are not living with greater intensity. You are becoming less capable of being fully present with one thing at a time. And that is not efficiency. That is dispersion. Because real learning demands something you can barely tolerate now: silence, attention, stillness. It demands that you remain in front of an idea long enough for that idea to begin changing you from within. But you do not want to remain there. You do not want to chew on anything. You do not want to go deep into anything. You want to move from one stimulus to the next, with no empty space in between, no pause, no echo, no chance of getting trapped with yourself. That is why the content itself hardly even matters. It can be a podcast about money, an interview, a political debate, a motivational video, a ridiculous piece of news, celebrity gossip. It does not matter. What matters is not the content. What matters is the sound, the occupation, the feeling that your mind is full and therefore safe. You use other people's voices so you do not have to hear your own. And that changes everything. Because now we are no longer talking about productivity. We are talking about fear. fear of emptiness, fear of that moment when the audio stops, the screen goes dark, and an uncomfortable question begins to surface. Do you actually like the life you are living? Do you truly care about the person lying next to you? Does your work mean anything, or have you simply adapted to surviving inside it? What are you becoming through this routine? Those are the questions you are trying to avoid, not because they are unreal, but because they are real, and because if you gave them space, they might tear apart the image you have built of yourself. That is why you put the headphones back on. That is why you fill every empty space with someone else's voice. That is why you need so much movement around you. Not to grow, not to learn, not to improve, but to avoid staying still long enough to see clearly what you have been avoiding for far too long. Your supposed hyper-productivity is not strength, it's a cover story. An elegant cover story, designed to keep you from admitting that you are afraid to look directly at your own life. And as long as you keep calling optimization what is really a sophisticated escape, you'll keep confusing noise with progress and sedation with purpose.
Let's call this what it is. Because as long as you keep using soft language, you will keep missing the severity of what you are doing to yourself. The world says you have an attention problem, that you are distracted, that the environment overstimulates you, that your brain is overloaded. But that is a comfortable explanation, and comfortable explanations are rarely true. Your real problem is not lack of attention. Your real problem is lack of courage, because thinking is not what most people now believe it to be. Thinking is not answering emails. Thinking is not solving tasks. Thinking is not moving quickly between stimuli. Real thought is something else. It is stopping. It is stepping out of the automatic flow. It is turning down the noise and facing what appears when there is nothing left to do. To think is to look at yourself without distraction, to question what you do, why you do it, what it is all for, and whether the life you keep repeating actually means anything. And that hurts. It hurts because thought demands responsibility. It hurts because it may show you that you have spent years repeating decisions you never truly chose. It hurts because it may expose the possibility that you are living a life that does not represent you at all. And that is what you do not want to see. So you do the only thing that protects you from it. You keep yourself busy, constantly. You fill your hours with small tasks, irrelevant conversations, short videos, empty debates, fast stimuli that never demand depth. Because as long as you stay busy, you do not have to think. As long as you stay distracted, you do not have to face anything. Your mind never remains silent long enough to begin asking dangerous questions. And that is the perfect trap. Because from the outside, it looks like movement, it looks like activity, it looks like progress. But underneath it, there is avoidance. You avoid the emptiness. You avoid the examination. You avoid the moment when you might finally realize that something in your life does not fit. And the longer you live like this, the weaker your capacity for thought becomes. Because thinking is a faculty. And like any faculty, it deteriorates when it is not used. You have trained yourself for years not to remain with one idea for too long, not to go deep, not to stay, not to be uncomfortable. And now, when silence finally appears, you do not know what to do with it. It feels unbearable, not because it is dangerous, but because you have forgotten how to inhabit it. And when a person loses the ability to think, they lose something far more serious than focus. They lose direction. They begin to live by inertia. They adapt to whatever is there. They repeat whatever they see without questioning it, without choosing it, without even noticing. And that is how someone can spend years living a life they never truly decided to live, not because someone forced them, but because they never stopped long enough to ask whether they wanted to remain there. That is the real problem. You are not distracted. You are disconnected from your own capacity to think. And without thought, there is no choice. And without choice, there is no life that is truly yours.
Let's pause here, not to rest, but to see more clearly. I want you to imagine something very specific. No escape, no excuses. Imagine that for a reason you cannot avoid, you have to spend the next 48 hours completely alone, locked inside a white room. The space is comfortable. There is a bed, there is water, there is food. There is no physical danger. But there is one condition. There are no screens, no phone, no television, no computer, no books, no music, nothing you can use to distract yourself, not even paper or a pen. And there is something else. The silence is absolute. So absolute that you can hear your own breathing, your own heartbeat, nothing more. Now be honest, not with me, with yourself. What would happen to you after just a few hours in that room? Do not say you would rest. Do not say you would relax. Do not say you would finally feel peace. You know that is not what would happen. At first, you would try to endure it. You would move around. You would lie down. You would get up again. You would look for something to do, something to look at, something to hear. But there would be nothing. And little by little, something inside you would begin to shift. Your body would grow restless. Your mind would speed up. And a feeling that is hard to describe would begin to rise. Anxiety, discomfort, agitation, as if something inside you were desperately asking for an exit. But there would be no exit, no stimulus, no distraction, only you with yourself. And that is where the real problem appears. Not boredom, not loneliness, the encounter. Because in that silence, things begin to surface. Thoughts you have been avoiding, memories you did not want to touch, questions you never dared to ask, decisions you postponed, truths you softened, versions of yourself you preferred not to look at. All of it begins to rise, without a filter, without interruption, without anesthesia. And the more you try to push it away, the more present it becomes. Because now there is nothing left to cover it, nothing left to distract you from it, nothing left to dilute it. That is what really scares you. Not being alone, but being unable to run from yourself. Realizing that you do not know who you are when everything external disappears. Feeling that you have spent too much of your life building noise just to avoid facing what is essential. The white room does not imprison you. It reveals you. It shows you what remains when everything else is gone. And if that idea unsettles you, the problem is not the room. The problem is what you have been carrying inside. Because if silence begins to break you apart, it is not silence that is broken. It is you, after too many years of refusing to listen to yourself. The price of this escape is not paid by you alone. It is paid by the people who live with you, the people who love you. the people who keep trying to reach you while you are somewhere else. Because a person who cannot bear being with themselves will also struggle to truly be with anyone else, and that shows. It shows in small things, at the table, on the couch, in an ordinary conversation at the end of the day. Your body is there, but your attention is not. Your partner speaks to you. Your child wants to show you something. Someone tries to share a burden, a joy, a concern, and you answer with an automatic sound, a yeah, a sure, an aha, without really lifting your eyes, without entering the moment, without being there. You hear words, but you do not hear the person, because part of you is always being pulled somewhere else, toward the phone, toward the noise, toward the next distraction. And that turns your presence into a kind of polite absence. You are there, but not really there. You show up, you do your part, you share space, but you do not share attention. And without attention, there is no intimacy, no depth, no real bond. Because loving someone is not only about providing, solving, or staying physically close. Love is also the ability to hold your presence, to really look, to listen without impatience, to carry the weight of another person for a moment without mentally escaping into a screen. And that is where an uncomfortable truth begins to show itself. Whatever receives your attention reveals your real hierarchy of priorities. Not the one you claim to have, the real one, the one that becomes visible when no one is explaining anything. And if you give more presence to meaningless content online than to the face of the person who shares a life with you, then the problem is not technological, it is moral. Because you are communicating something cruel, even without saying a word. You are saying this: anything out there holds me more deeply than your existence right here in front of me. That erodes a relationship, not all at once, but slowly, like a constant drop of water, until one day you're surprised by the coldness in your home, the distance in your partner, the disconnection in your children, and you do not understand how it got there. But it got there like this, minute by minute, interruption by interruption, screen by screen, absence by absence. You want deep relationships, but you have become a person who is superficially available and emotionally unreachable. And no one can grow roots in that kind of ground, because someone who never descends into themselves cannot offer depth to anyone else. Someone who lives by running from their own inner world eventually becomes a stranger to other people too. That is the real cost of constant noise. It does not only pull you away from yourself, it empties you from the inside until the people who love you are left living with a version of you that breathes, answers, and functions, but is almost never truly present.
At this point, you can no longer say you don't see it. You can no longer pretend this is just a harmless habit. You can no longer hide behind comfortable explanations, because deep down, you already know exactly what this is about. And now comes the part that makes people uncomfortable, the part where the excuse ends, the moment where you stop pointing outward and start looking inward. For years, you have been telling yourself a very convenient story, that the problem is the phone, that the problem is the algorithm, that the problem is society, that everything is designed to hook you, to distract you, to steal your attention. And yes, that is true, but it is not enough, because there is a truth you cannot escape. No one walks into your house at night and forces you to unlock your screen. No one grabs your hand and makes you open an app. No one decides for you that you need noise in every moment of your day. That decision is yours. It always has been. Every time you reach for the phone in bed, every time you fill silence with sound, every time you choose not to stay alone with yourself, it is not the system, it is not technology, it is not the world, it
is you. And this is not about blaming you. It is about giving you your power back. Because as long as you believe you are a victim of external forces, you will not change anything. You will stay trapped in the same pattern, repeating the same excuse, justifying the same escape. But the moment you recognize that there is a choice, something far more uncomfortable appears, and far more powerful: responsibility. And responsibility is heavy, because now you cannot hide. Now you cannot say, "I have no other option." Now you cannot keep acting as if all of this is happening without your participation. You participate, you choose, you repeat, and you can also stop. But to do that, you have to stop lying to yourself. You have to stop dressing your discomfort as if it were an external problem. You have to accept something that does not sound good, but is necessary. You are not stuck because you have no alternative. You are stuck because it is easier than facing what is inside you, easier than stopping, easier than feeling, easier than thinking, easier than admitting that maybe you have been living on autopilot for too long. And as long as that ease keeps winning, your life will remain exactly the same. Because the real danger is not the noise, it is your willingness to use it as a permanent refuge. And until you break that dynamic, there is no technique, no app, no system, no trick that will get you out of it. There is only one way forward, and it begins the moment you stop looking outward and take responsibility for every choice you keep repeating in silence.
The way out is not dramatic. It is not about throwing your phone away. It is not about disappearing for a weekend and calling it a reset. That is performance, and performance never changes a life. The real shift is quieter, less visible, and far more demanding. It is the recovery of self-governance, the ability to remain inside your own mind without needing to fill it every second. The ability to stay in your own body without reaching for distraction the moment discomfort appears. This is not about rejecting technology. It is about refusing to use it as anesthesia. It is about reclaiming something that should be basic but now feels almost radical. The ability to be with yourself without running. And that does not happen all at once. It does not come from understanding a powerful idea. It does not come from feeling inspired for a night and forgetting everything the next day. It comes from something much simpler and much harder. It comes from resistance, resisting the automatic impulse, resisting the need to fill every gap, resisting the urge to escape the moment something inside you starts to move. That is where it begins. In something small, in something almost invisible, in the exact moment your hand reaches for the screen and you stop it. In the second your mind asks for noise and you refuse to obey. That is the beginning of reconstruction, not with speeches, not with motivation, with a single act, with a refusal, with a brief but conscious decision. And yes, at first it will hurt, because you have trained yourself not to tolerate your own presence. You have confused stimulation with life. You have spent too long avoiding the one encounter that actually matters, the encounter with yourself. So when silence comes, it will not feel like peace right away. It will feel like friction, like anxiety, like resistance, like a kind of emotional withdrawal. And that's where most people go back. That's where they reach for the phone again. That's where they turn the noise back on. That's where they cover everything again. But if you stay, if you hold your position, if you do not run, if you do not fill the space immediately, something else begins to happen. Beneath the discomfort, there is truth. Beneath the urge to escape, there are real questions. Beneath the noise, you are still there.
And maybe that's exactly what you've been avoiding all along. So tonight, when your day ends, do something radically simple. Lie down, turn off the lights, and do not reach for anything. No video, no music, no scrolling, no borrowed voices. Stay there in the dark, eyes open if necessary, and endure, like an adult, a few minutes of real silence. Let the discomfort come, let the questions rise, let the tension breathe. It will not destroy you. What may destroy you is spending your entire life running. Anesthesia will not heal you. Noise will not give you peace. Distraction will not return your center. Because peace is not the relief of forgetting yourself. Peace begins when you finally stop running and find the courage to remember who you are when nothing is turned on around you.